It's showtime, folks.
Right there. Way back and way out of here. The New York Mets get a much-needed victory from Darryl Strawberry for a homer.
And like that, he's gone.
Hey, and welcome to the Know-It-All Podcast. We got a special MLB preview show, and we got a new person in the Greenlight Network. Our man, Christian Redbird Williams, is here to break down the MLB. He also might be joining us a handful of times to break down some movies. So we got him an old school throwback, a MLB fan, a cinephile. He's an old school kind of guy. So, Redbird, are you ready to break down some baseball with us?
I'm ready. Pleasure to be here.
All right, let's start out in the NL East. We got supposedly the best teams in the NL East. Everybody's saying this is the toughest division in baseball. Do you agree with it being the toughest division, you think, in baseball, or do you think some other division might be a little tougher?
Actually, I'm good with this being one of the tougher divisions in baseball. I think that the top three teams in this division are going to be a force to be reckoned with this year for the National League. Yes.
Definitely. I think, I don't know if it's the toughest because I look at that NL West and any division that has the Dodgers and Padres. Now, the three teams below it might be all crap, but any team that has two that might win 100 games, I'm like, maybe so. Now, top to bottom, this might be the best, but the New York Mets are actually somehow favored to win this. I didn't know Francisco Lindor clearly meant that much to any one team, considering he barely could win 90 games a year for the Cleveland Indians, and they actually were good, but they're favored at plus 130. The Braves come in next at plus 140, Nationals at plus 650, Phillies at plus 850, and the Marlins at 3,500. Do you agree with the Mets being favored here? Who do you like in this NL East division?
Okay, this just shows what an old school guy I am. I think this is a Braves year. I like the Braves look. They're lean and mean. They've got young pitching. It's good. The Mets, this is coming from an old Cards fan. The Mets, in the end, I just don't see it holding up. They're already being plagued by injuries.
Yeah, I can't buy the Mets, and I certainly can't buy them as favored. The Braves, overall hitting-wise, will be a better hitting team than the Mets.
Yes.
And, while the Mets have pitching in theory that is loaded, other than DeGrom, I'm not 100% sure which one of those guys actually has managed to stay healthy. Syndergaard, while great, is never healthy. Carrasco, I believe, is already hurt. So, the pitching in theory looks great on paper, but they're never healthy. So I really lean Braves here. And, if I was looking for a value one, I'd stare at the Nationals. The last full season, they were the team that ended up winning the World Series. Scherzer's getting a little older. Strasburg, also a little older, but their pitching still probably as good as anybody in the National League. Whether they can get the hitting, I don't know. But if I was looking at somebody that maybe could take this division that wasn't the Braves, I'd definitely look Nationals here.
I agree with that. You've got Juan Soto lurking still. That's an MVP candidate in a way. So, in my opinion. So,
yes.
With Scherzer, Strasburg, pretty strong. That's a good sleeper team for these.
Any love on the Phillies here, plus 850. Their roster looks fancy. They have a lot of people with commercials. They never seem to win, though.
I would agree. The Phillies, like you said, on paper it looks lean and mean. The Phillies are the Phillies, in my opinion. It's still a few pieces off.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into a handful of these win totals in the National League East. The Braves at 91.5 wins. Would you go over 91.5 wins to 92, or would you ride the under on the Atlanta Braves on that one?
I'm going to go with the Braves are going to win 92 plus.
Yes, I think that's a pretty solid bet at 92. I really like the Braves there. They just have been head over heels, and they might be a little bit of a sleeper in the playoffs here that might could turn up the apple cart out of the NL West. But I'd have to see them win a playoff series probably first before I totally sit down on that theory. But I'd go over 91.5 as well. Last year, the surprising Miami Marlins got into the playoffs. Now, if you want to argue, pretty much every team somehow managed to get into the playoffs last year. So I don't know how great a feat that was, but they did, I guess, win more than probably people thought. Miami Marlins at 7.5. Do you think they will continue to rise, or do you think they probably fall back down to the bottom here?
I think the Marlins are going to level out this year. I think that was kind of a flash. Send out Contra, solid young pitcher, but you're just basically riding off that.
I just can't buy that the Marlins are going to step up. I think it was a little bit of a fluke, a little bit of COVID happenings. Now, granted, they missed 2 weeks by COVID, but they seemed to catch the right rocket ship there at the end and sort of snuck into the playoffs there. But also, like I mentioned, 10 teams made the playoffs. So it wasn't exactly like, the old school 80s where like one team from each division gets in the playoffs and like 90-win teams are left out here.
Interesting year. It was a strange one.
All right. We'll move on to the New York Mets, 90.5. So we already talked about them a little bit. Do the Mets get over that 90-win mark? Yeah, that's pretty much what I think. I think definitely for sure under that 90-win mark for the New York Mets. Now, here's an interesting one. The Phillies at 80.5. That probably actually sits probably exactly somewhere around where I think they'll win. So would you ride Phillies over or under here?
That's a pretty good win total for the Phillies. If I was going to have to go with the Phillies, I'm going to say the Phillies are going to be slightly under this year. Yeah, underperform.
I'd probably maybe just lean to the over here. It's hard to get these wins balanced out in this division because everybody's going to play each other a billion times, and I don't know who's going to really beat up on who, So I guess I'd probably maybe lean over that 80.5 and get to 81, but it also wouldn't shock me if they were, hovering around 78, 79 wins too, just depending on who was healthy and who wasn't. So we'll move on to probably the swing team here. The Washington Nationals. We touched on it. Scherzer, Strasburg getting a little old, but the pitching is still, there. The hitting, you got Soto. I don't know if you have much more than that, but he seems to be good enough at the time. But where are you sitting on this 84.5 for the Washington Nationals? Do they find the magic again, or are they sinking back to the bottom as Scherzer sorts to, hit the twilight of the career here?
I'm going to go from another tough one. That's a middle rider, but I would say with the veteran presence, you've got Soto. You still got some strong pitching. You got Trey Turner if he's healthy. I'll go over for the Nationals. You'll go over.
Yeah, I think I'll ride the over on that one too. I just I have a feel. I don't know if they'll be as good as they were. A lot of it will hinge on Strasburg and Scherzer, but I just think they can hang in there. Corbin's still a solid pitcher enough. They brought in John Lester. Now, if it's 2015, we're probably a little more excited. But as a fourth, fifth guy, you probably can do much worse. I think we'll get into the Cardinals a little bit when we start getting
there you go.
Fourth and fifth guy, and you'd probably love to have John Lester.
Yeah, there you go. Sounds good at this point.
Yeah. So I guess I can live with the Nationals going over here. I just think a little bit of a resurgence here. And I'm not telling anyone, but I think Juan Soto can sort of carry this offense enough to drive in some runs. And you have some other, I wouldn't say great hitters, but Josh Bell might hit 200, but he'll hit some homers. Trey Turner gets on base. Castro is a professional, but I wouldn't, it's enough to get by. All right, so we'll move on to the aforementioned NL Central. The Cardinals, the favorite out of the NL Central at minus 105. So you like the Cardinals at minus 105 here to easily win this division. I think we'll probably get into the rest of the teams, and every one of them seems to be rebuilding. So it might fall to the Cardinals just by default, but Cardinals minus 105. You like the Cardinals in this NL Central division?
I've got the Cardinals. Of course, I'm a lifetime Cardinals fan. I'm probably one of the biggest Cardinals fans. But with the addition of Arenado, the pitchings might be in trouble this year. But the Cardinals, I think they have the magic. I like the Cardinals for the division.
Yeah, I think we'll get into the pitching here in a few minutes. Certainly that somehow Adam Wainwright still might be the best pitcher on the staff.
There you go.
And we were possibly watching him when we were teenagers, so that might factor into some issues here. Yeah, I think the Cardinals probably take this division pretty easy. Cubs are in a rebuild. Pirates are in a well, I don't know what the Pirates are in. I'm not sure they could win the Korean League with the team that's throwing out there.
I'll go with that.
I don't know I don't know about the Reds at plus 330 without Bauer there. They've been getting a lot of hype for, the last 3 years. I like Jimenez, but other than that, it's not all that stunning. I do look at the Brewers a little bit. Speaking of, bad pitching, it is never great, but it seems to work its way through there. And they throw a lot of the, bullpen pitchers out there. I mean, they don't really necessarily use a lot of the starters. I can get into my enjoyment of watching Craig Counsell come out every other inning and replace a pitcher, but it seems to work for them. The hitting's there, especially. They would be the only one I'd really mark to be able to take anywhere out of the NL Central at plus 340. It's not even that great a price, as something like Washington, who at least has proven track record of winning. But anybody else in this division you see maybe could slide up there and, if the Cardinals pitching totally goes into the tank, could maybe take this division?
Even though the Cardinals and the Brewers are going in different directions, they're pretty evenly matched teams, in my opinion, this year. The Brew Crew and the Cardinals look very similar in their match skill sets. As far as the rest of the division, the Cubs, Reds, and Pirates are lost this year. I just don't see them taking the division, even coming close, really.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into some of the win totals here. We'll start out with the Cincinnati Reds at 82.5. We talked about we didn't love the Reds here. 82.5. It is a weak division, so you'll play, a lot of bad teams. So I think that sort of has to factor a little bit. Whereas like we were talking about the NL East, you're playing a pretty solid team every night for the most part.
Right.
In the Central, you get some freebies here. Reds 82.5 over. What's your thoughts on that one?
I actually think the Reds could win 83 games this year or more. 83. I don't want to recount it. I've gone both ways with the Reds. They're another tough one for me to judge. It doesn't look that good on paper though, however, but I see the Reds enough. I think the Reds might be able to pull off enough cheap wins to ride the middle like that. I don't know. 83. Yeah, I could do it.
I really struggle with this one. I'd probably go over just because what we talked about, this division isn't even all that great. And, I guess I'd lean probably over. It probably depends a lot on health and how a lot of their young hitters come along. I'm very curious to see how that pitching staff, which was pretty solid, even, outside of Bauer.
Right.
But Bauer was the guy you take it every, day, every fifth day and get a win. So I'm curious to see how they come back from that. But I probably lean over. But I wouldn't even touch it with a bet. So I'd lean over, but I'm staying away from the Cincinnati Reds. All right. The aforementioned Cardinals, 86.5 win total. I'm way over on this just because I might not love their pitching staff, and quite possibly I might hate their pitching staff. And really, outside of Goldschmidt and Arenado, I don't know how much I love the hitting. But when you have Goldschmidt and Arenado, that's probably enough to win you games. And certainly in this division, I'd go way over in this because I just think there are a lot of free wins in there. And the Cardinals are smart enough to, sort of scheme their way into a lot of wins, certainly in this division.
I would also watch out for the names O'Neill and Carlson, the two young outfielders. This is almost the last chance for O'Neill to put together a good season for money here. He's out of options. And Carlson's they're really touting Carlson as a really up and coming. We just don't have much of a body of work out of either of them. The high strikeout rate on O'Neill. Carlson really doesn't have that many at-bats in the major leagues. So they're two biggest there in the outfield as well.
Yeah, I think if you could get something from those guys, and even then, the Cardinals sort of mix and match their way into, hits with guys you probably don't really know. We will have to touch on the pitching staff here. We're looking at Flannery, Kim, Wainwright, Grant, Miklos. What of those five do you trust other than Wainwright to maybe give you 5 solid innings?
I think Flaherty's going to be pretty solid this year at the top. Michaelis, wow. Not living up to had those 2 okay seasons at the top of signed and then hasn't put together much. So hasn't been healthy enough. So
no, that's the other thing.
On how healthy everybody is towards the end.
The only one I don't mind Kim. Now I would, he's not a, 1 or 2, but I think he's a solid rotation guy. You can get your innings out of it. Wainwright is still solid enough, as much jokes as we make. But, you're getting 5 innings out of that guy. You can't pitch him, 7, 8, 9 like you used to back in the day. Flaherty's really the swing guy here. Lot of hype around him, and it's never sort of been perfect. It's always you get 2 good games, you then get one really, really, really bad game, and you're like, what is this? But I just can't see anybody really overtaking the Cardinals here. So I don't think this pitching staff will really rear its ugly head until the playoffs. And then there might be, some issues who you're throwing out on day 2 of a playoff game.
I'll agree with that. Yeah.
All right, so let's move to the Milwaukee Brewers. Same thing as the Reds, 82.5 games here. I'm always pro Brewers. They are sort of Cardinals light, where you don't always know the name, minus Christian Yelich, who we all know, but they sort of find guys and play their way into wins. Now, Yelich got hurt last year, and also, last year was just a weird overall year. But I sort of see the Brewers more like 2 years ago, where it's not always going to be pretty. They're going to have, streaks of losing, streaks of winning, and they might be able to finagle their way into the, last wild card spot in there. But in this division, I think they're going to go way over because we haven't gotten to the Cubs yet. But my guess is the Cubs start to unload a handful of those guys too, by midseason around the trade deadline. So I think the Cubs might not be as bad as the Pirates, but we might be wondering who the hell is playing for them at some point during the year. So Brewers, are you over or under that 82.5?
I would have to go way over as well. They're going to save runs with the addition of Colton Wong up the middle. The outfield still pretty strong with, of course, you've got Yelich, who's very strong, but you've got Locane still playing. And I think, are they playing Travis Shaw back there this year?
Yeah.
They should be able to produce.
They also brought in Jackie Bradley Jr. From the Red Sox.
Yes.
That hitting sort of comes and goes, but defensively, it's another solid guy. And with, like Yelich, Kane, and Bradley out there, you're probably pretty solid in the outfield.
Yeah.
The infield, Colton Wong really well from watching with the Cardinals. I mean, he's not an amazing player, but he's a solid player, and he'll, do his job. Shaw's a solid enough guy. First base, probably a little bit of a hole. They got Hira there, who's, a little bit of pop, but that spot probably needs a little bit of an upgrade. And we talked about the Cardinals pitching, but the Brewers pitching, Woodruff, Barnes, and Anderson, and then Hauser and maybe Peralta as the fifth. I'm not sure we plug any of those guys as even a number 3 guy, whereas at least the Cardinals might at least have like 5 number 3 guys. We did talk about the Brewers bullpen, which is one of the best, and how they mostly just throw bullpen games a lot of the time. But I just think in this division, way over for the Milwaukee Brewers for sure here. All right. We touched on the Cubs a little bit. We'll go full Cubs, 79.5. I was very shocked to see this number this high because no GM, no manager from the days. They already started to unload a handful of guys. Yu Darvish is gone. That pitching staff is not what it was. They still have a handful of the hitters, but I'm curious how many of those guys will make it through the year before they start trading them, and that price tag gets, more and more expensive, and we just get a sort of minor league prospect team of the Cubs. So 79.5 for the Cubs. Are you going over or under on this one?
I'm going to go under on them. I just don't see it with the Cubs. Pitching staff led by Kyle Hendricks this year. I just don't think it's going to be as smooth as this went in the past. There's really nobody else to know. You've lost Quintana. You've lost Yu Darvish, as you mentioned. You've got a big question mark with Chris Bryant. I just don't see him doing it. I see him starting to unload and guys wanting to be moved to more competitive places in Chicago at the moment.
I'd just be very curious if Rizzo, Bryant, and Jason Hayward all sort of make it through this year without getting traded. I'm assuming Javi Baez is probably the one keeper the Cubs, hold on to. They seem to really love him. Maybe they hold on to Chris Bryant, but his production to what his price tag is going to be might start to get them a little scared.
Yeah.
And as much as we probably enjoy Jason Hayward's defense, you had a little touch of him as well. That bat is very interesting and streaky. And when it's cold, it's literally a strikeout every time. And it's not even like a good strikeout. It's I missed the ball by 3 feet kind of strikeout every time. So I definitely think Jason Hayward probably goes. Bryant's probably out of there. I'm curious to see what they do with Rizzo. I should mention Wilson Contreras, the catcher, too, probably sticks around with the Cubs. Yeah. So Contreras, Baez, I assume would be there. But this pitching staff definitely isn't anywhere near what it was last year or the last couple years. And I just think way under on this. I think the Cubs also are smart enough to know that that's why they got rid of Madden, they got rid of Theo Epstein. They know they're in a rebuild now and it's time to retool. They got the World Series. So I look for way, way under on that 79.5. All right. I'm curious here. How do we go about the Pittsburgh Pirates? This number is very, very low, but 59.5. I don't know if I could utter the words under, but I look at this roster and basically them unloading Josh Bell. So any run production that they even sort of had, they seem to get rid of. This pitching staff, is really atrocious. Pirates 59.5. Can you make yourself say under, winning 60 games? That's a whole lot of losses.
Oh, but this Pirates team looks, they stink on ice. It looks really bad. It would be a miracle. I think this might be the ultimate tank, Matthew. I think this team might be under. Yeah. Wow. That would be one of the worst teams ever, but Lord, they're looking bad. That's all I can. I'm going to go under, sadly.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I think I have to go under here. I was curious when you looked at their pitching staff roster, did you recognize anyone other than maybe Trevor Cahill, who was possibly last good in 2014?
Their big acquisition this year. They looked really bad.
All I know is I know a lot of players, and I had to click on a lot of players' names when I looked at the pitching.
There you go.
Pittsburgh Pirates.
Very little of note.
I will give a shout out to Gregor Polanco, the right fielder. I do enjoy Polanco. I feel a little bad that he is saddled with this, but anyway, I don't see how this team wins, and honestly, I don't think they're even trying to win. So their goal might be to win as few games as possible. So, under definitely, even in this sort of weak division. All right, so that's our NL Central. We'll move on to the big one, the NL West. A lot of moving and shaking here. The San Diego Padres are making a run for it here, but we're going to start out with the Dodgers at minus 300. I think once Darvish signed over there with the Padres, I started to have a little inkling that maybe they had slid up, and then the Dodgers brought in Trevor Bauer, and I was like, the Dodgers pitching staff is debating whether to put David Price in the bullpen or use him as a fifth starter. And then I begin to, this Dodgers team is so loaded, minus 300 favorites in the NL West. The Padres at plus 200, the Giants, Diamondbacks, and Rockies 5,000, 7,500, and 9,000. I don't think you could talk yourself really into a Giants, Diamondbacks, or Rockies at all. Padres is about all you can do. Do you think the Padres can overtake this Dodgers team? Maybe a little complacency comes in here. I'm searching for a way to, because I can tell you, players get hurt, but then the Dodgers seem to have one or two that back them up that are just as good as the ones that are hurt. So I don't know what it would take for the Dodgers to lose this division.
I would agree. As much as I like to see the Padres, and as much as you can salivate at some of those names like Tatis Jr. and I think the Dodgers have still got this division. Wow, it's like an all-star team playing an all-star team at this point. But I'm gonna have to still go with the Dodgers for the division. I've already kind of played my hand. I gave you the Braves earlier in this segment, and that's just because I don't want to say Dodgers. They have the best team on paper.
Yeah, I tried to work my way around it where I could find a way to get these Padres in here, but I just don't think they can overtake the Dodgers. So we'll go to win totals here. We'll start with the Dodgers win totals because we already kissed their ass a little bit, and we'll probably kiss it a little more. 101.5. That's a giant win total, but I would be very scared to take the under on this because, like we talked about, they can take guys out and rest them on. Literally, I don't think they have to pitch Clayton Kershaw until September if they wanted to hold him out.
There you go.
Just fine. So 101.5. Are you going over or under on this one?
I'm going to say with that pitching staff and that all-star lineup, it's very, very possible that they go over. That's the ultimate team. 101, that's a lot of games, but they've done it before, and I think they can do it again. They only improved. So
Yeah. All right. I'm going over 2 on the Dodgers. We'll go to the next curious one. San Diego Padres at 94.5. Now, actually, when I looked at their roster, I thought it was a little low because I look at this division and I'm like, D-backs, Rockies, Giants, those are all wins for both these teams. So I'm very, very curious if it could be an old school style and we get 200-win teams out of the NL West. Now, that would be very, very difficult. And the Padres, as much as we like, their young talent and their pitching staff, which is probably more than their young talent overall, are you going over the 94.5 for the San Diego Padres?
I'm going to go. Originally, I was going to go over because you look at that and that's just hard to beat. I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to go over for the 94 wins for the Padres this year, even though I could see it going. It's the Padres, but
yeah.
But
you gamble on the Padres to win 95 games. It would be highly
say. That's hard
scary.
to say. But with that lineup, that pitching staff being so scary, I'm going to go over for the Padres. The division's bad.
Yeah,
otherwise.
I'm going to go over too. The hitting is loaded up. Tatis, Machado, Hosmer, Tommy Pham, who I like. You probably like him a lot too.
There you go.
Will Myers. You got Darvish, you got Snell, you got Lamet. Technically, you still have Chris Paddock there as the 5th starter. And 3 years ago, he was like the number 1 prospect in the country. So, just a loaded team overall. So definitely going there with the San Diego Padres. All right. We'll dive into a couple of these other teams here. San Francisco Giants, 75.5. Buster Posey is back. I don't know if that helps really all that much. Buster was probably last good in about 2018, but he gives them a little bit of life. Giants 75.5. Are you over or under on the Giants 75.5?
Go ahead and give I'm going to give the Giants about 80 wins this year. I'm going to have them over, but barely over the 75.5 this year. They're looking a little long in the tooth. They still have some names. I don't know how well they'll perform, and they made no moves. So looking a little old. I think I would go over, but barely, in my opinion.
Yeah. You look at this roster and this pitching staff, and you have, like you said, names. It looks, almost okay on paper, but then you start pulling up these guys like Baseball Reference, and they all looked good on paper in 2017. Now they're a little more like league average. You see Evan Longoria, you see Belt, you see Posey, you see Johnny Cueto, and you're like, oh, they got some real legit guys. And then you're like, well, none of them have been great, for a handful of years now. And you're like, well, I don't think they're going to improve as they age.
There you go.
But this division is just so bad. So you're probably left. Do you think the Giants can get good, or do you think Arizona, I wouldn't say good, but, sort of sneak a handful of wins versus bad teams?
I thought about it, and then the Arizona might be one of those teams that might be a little more lean and mean than we think they are. They have some names that we're just not as familiar with. Real slim body of work, not very many at-bats, not very many innings pitched on some of those guys, not a lot of mileage. Not a lot of leadership either. So,
other than Bumgarner, I think that mileage.
Bumgarner. There you go. And I'm looking like him today too.
Yeah, I know. Your arm probably feels like his, which is probably disturbing since he's a professional pitcher and you are not.
D-backs.
Their win total is 74.5, so it's about the same as the Giants.
Yeah.
I think I think if you ask me, I think I like this Diamondbacks hitters a little bit more. Now they aren't as probably known as the Giants, but they are a little bit younger and seem to have a little bit more
There you go.
legs. And maybe by July, when both teams are, hovering around under 10 games or hovering around 500, I feel like the young guys probably might have a little bit more life in them than the old guys who are just like, okay, this season is over. Let's ride this puppy out. So I think I'd probably lean towards the Diamondbacks going over theirs and the Giants going under theirs. I did see a fun name, though, on the Diamondbacks. Apparently, their Joakim Soria is going to try to close for them. I was curious if you wanted me to put an over-under month when that experiment goes awry. All right, we'll touch on the last team in the NL West. I don't know if they're quite as no hope as the Pirates right now, but with Trey Arenado, they're bordering on the no hope. And the Rockies, 64.5, not quite 59.5, but Rockies over under 64.5. I'm assuming they're in the new baseball strategy mode now as well of let's just tank and see how many prospects we get. And in 10 years, we might have a good team that we don't have to pay until 3 years later when we have to pay them all. But Rockies, 64.5. Are you over or under on that one?
I'm going to go under again on the Rockies. As bad as that win total is, the Rockies, I think they really got the wind knocked out of their sails. They really don't have many pieces, and the pieces that they picked up in that Arenado trade, I don't know how MLB ready they are. So it might be a while till you see a name out of the Rockies.
I can tell you they aren't, because I don't think any Cardinal fan really was like, oh, no, you traded our terrible.
Yeah, I definitely got the better end of that trade. I think the Rockies have some work to do. Wow, the Rockies. Oh, they're always in such bad shape, Matt.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to go under on the Rocks.
Yeah, I have to go under too. The only thing I can say, they still have a handful of hitters that,
Right.
Story, Blackman, however you feel about CJ Cron, he can hammer the ball. And in Colorado, he's a serviceable enough guy. Maybe those hitters step up and can get them maybe over that 64.5. But also, I think they'll be so bad that people are start sniffing around Blackman and Cron and Story. So, a lot like the Cubs, I don't know what this roster is going to be in July. And we might be seeing a lot of those prospects that are not ready to play. And then you go into their pitching staff and well, it's atrocious, but that's Colorado too. Even if they were good, they'd be borderline atrocious. So I just have to go under on the Rockies here, especially since I don't know if any of the big name guys that still sort of hang on there will even be with them, because this is going to be a total rebuild.
They're going to be terrible on the road as well this year. I just don't see it. So,
all right, we'll go from the NL to the AL. All right, you ready? AL East. This is a pretty interesting division, but I think it's interesting for two teams that aren't the Orioles and the Red Sox. Well, Orioles, I'm living in the 1980s. They have essentially been tanking since 2015. I don't know when that project is ending, but I think this is the last year of Chris Davis's 40-year deal. So they can finally get out of that disastrous decision. New York Yankees favored here at -222, Blue Jays at 410, Rays at 450, Red Sox at 2,000, Orioles at 7,500. I actually think both the Jays and the Rays can threaten the Yankees here. I'm not sold on the Yankees. This just seems like the Yankees are the same team they've been. Okay pitching, scary power hitters, but they don't necessarily hit for average. There are a lot of Ks in that lineup. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on the AL West. Blue Jays, Rays, I don't know, maybe you can talk yourselves into the Red Sox. That would be a very hard talk, but they're trying to talk themselves into themselves. So where are you looking in the AL East here?
Yeah, I'm liking Tampa still. Tampa's got it's not a flashy team. It's a more than solid team. It could sneak up on the Yankees. I still think the Yankees are really solid, probably have the division. But the Jays, wow. We're looking good. The only reason I didn't go all in on the Jays like I originally was going to was that because I really thought the Jays had improved with the Kirby Yates, but then Kirby Yates comes out the gate and he's hurt right off the bat, and they're already seeing the injuries. The George Springer, the big trade injury. Can the Jays stay healthy? That is my only question mark with them. So that's why I would lean a little more towards Tampa. Scrappier team. It reminds me more of a St. Louis type team that takes next man up. So if there was a team that could threaten the Yankees, I would go with Tampa Bay, but I still think the Yankees probably have the division.
Yeah. Honestly, I thought the value in the Rays at plus 450 was much better than the Blue Jays. This Rays team just, they lost Snell. But if anybody watched the World Series, they didn't seem to like him all that much anyway, since they pulled him out in the fourth inning when he was essentially throwing a no-hitter. So, I don't know how much they actually – that's not just, plug and play. They brought Chris Archer back. So, needless to say, he was one time going to be a great pitcher. He turned into an okay pitcher. But if anybody figures things out, it's always the Rays. So, I don't see much difference from this Tampa Bay Rays team this year to last year, or even the year before when they were threatening the Yankees for the division, and they won it last year. So I just like this Tampa Bay Rays team at plus 450. We'll get to it in win total, but I'm going to say I'm a little nervous about this Blue Jays team. They're getting a whole lot of smoke, and this feels a little bit like the Blue Jays are going to turn into the Phillies of the whole lot of smoke, a whole lot of players we all love to watch. But how many wins come out of this Blue Jays side?
And how many times have you heard this story before out of teams like the Blue Jays? So, I can see them struggling actually, but the names are there. It looks good on paper.
It looks very awesome on paper. Granted, maybe a handful of their fathers might look better on their on paper. But,
there you go.
Red Sox, Orioles, no chance in either of those.
No.
Yeah, I thought so. All right, so we'll hit the win totals of the AL East. We'll start with the Yankees at 95.5. I thought this was a all right number. Seemed a little high for me. I think if it'd be, 92, I'd probably lean a little more. But 95.5 seems a little bit much, especially with someone, Judge Stanton, will probably be hurt by some hamstring will be sore by the time this podcast ends. So Yankees at 95.5. Where are you looking there?
Actually got them slightly under, even though I like the Yankees for the division. I had the Yankees at about 91, 92 wins. So like when I was thinking about it. So I still see the Yankees in first place, but I would say slightly under the 95.
Yeah. We won't discuss their hitting because their hitting's been the same that it's been. You know what you're getting. They added Kluber. They added James Italian. I think Kluber's a dud. He hasn't been good for 2 or 3 years here. Italian was, in the Pirates, and he had a handful of good years there, and then he tailed off. Do you think he could find any life here on the Yankees team? They hyped him up as a good free agent signing. It's just sort of hard to get a read on him being stuck in that Pittsburgh just hole of death, really. So what do you make of this Yankee staff? Cole, Kluber, Italian, the Montgomery and Herman probably will rotate between, a handful of guys. But I think they're banking on Kluber and Italian trying to carry these guys. Do you think they can count on them to carry him. I didn't get the Kluber hype. He really hasn't been good for a couple years now.
And I've seen Talion a lot play the St. Louis frequently and for a couple years. New York can be that make or break type town. After watching the James Paxton saga before he was traded off again this year, or free agent signed this year, I can see where it could happen, but I just don't see it. I think it'll stay together. I don't think it'll be any stronger than solid though at best. So
I just don't trust them going into New York, especially Kluber. He's going to get tossed to shreds when he, can not find the strike zone for, games at a time. That's why I think actually the loss of Tanaka, now say what you will about him, but he was comfortable in New York and he sort of was just there and he brushed it off and he could handle it. I mean, the last couple of years, he wasn't great. He was aging out, but I think they'll feel that more than they think. So I'm just really curious how this Yankees pitching staff will do. I don't think that will factor too much into the regular season because, we joke about Judge and Stanton and Hicks and all these guys getting hurt all the time, but some of them always are on the field and they pound the crap out of the ball when they're on the field. So they will win games in the regular season for sure.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go on to the next one. The Blue Jays, 86.5, second favorite out of here. 86.5. That's an 87 win. I want to like this Blue Jays team and I want to go get one of the old school Blue Jays caps and all, but I talked about it. I'm just feeling it here that this is the team where we all love and we all, look, they have Biggio and Guerrero Jr. and Bichette and Springer. And, we're all like, all these guys are so great. And then they win 80 games and have uneven pitching and uneven hitting through stretches.
Yeah. I was the same as you. I wanted to be sold on the Jays. I was nostalgic. I liked it. Flag Guerrero Jr. You got to love it. But when I started to see the injuries already rolling in when we had just gotten there, I just don't see it. I see this team. It's probably going to get rocky at some point for this team. I could see them going under the 86 wins easily if something were to happen. So
I'm definitely leaning on under on this Toronto Blue Jays team. And if they're awesome, I'll be happy and hop on that bandwagon and wear my powder Blue Jays cap. All right. We probably already hinted since we both went under on the Blue Jays here. You could probably work what we're going to go with the Tampa Bay Rays then. 85.5 wins. Tampa Bay Rays, we talked about them a little bit in previewing the division. Over under on the 85.5. Yeah,
I'm going over.
Yeah, I think
like
definitely.
Rays.
I don't see a way they probably don't win 88, 89. They might even stretch to 90 games here, depending on how bad the Boston Red Sox are. We'll switch to the Boston Red Sox. 80.5 wins. It's probably a tight one. The city might riot if they go under 80.5 wins for third straight year. But anyway, what are you feeling on this Boston Red Sox team? Hitting wise, I think they might be okay. I don't love it.
I agree.
But I look at this pitching staff: Rodriguez, Evaldi, Richards, Perez, and maybe Chris Sale. There haven't been a lot of words. I'm hearing crickets every time I try to find out how healthy Chris Sale is and whether he even still has a left arm. I don't know. So it's him or Pivita. What do you think of this Red Sox team? Do you think they might have a little bit of a bounce back, or do you think they're dropping down again?
I really don't want to take the Bo Sox under 80 wins.
Yeah.
But I don't see them. I at least unless the Jays are a full on just disaster. I don't see them overtaking the Jays slot, and I just don't see them going very far over the 80. To tell you the truth, I could see an 85 win team maybe if things started clicking. It got solid mid-year, but I don't see him going anywhere, definitely. And the pitching's just not there, I don't think.
Well, the only thing that would make me nervous about taking the Boston Red Sox under, I in this rotation and with their lineup here, I'd go under. But we already discussed like the Rockies and the Cubs might be unloading people. And as much as Boston wants to try to convince itself it's in a rebuild and they're going to just tank and soup up the prospect system, I'm not sure the press or the fans will allow them to do that. So when Chris Bryant and Charlie Blackmon and Trevor Story and all these other guys start getting dangled, that's when I think Boston might start adding guys. And then, all of a sudden, this whole roster and pitching staff might look a little different. And then we're at under 80.5 wins. And I'm like, well, this isn't the 80.5 win team I took under. So I don't know. I'm wavering. I guess I'd go under and hope they don't add too much. But I just, with their lineup and pitching staff the way it is, I can't see them winning over 80 games in this division. All right, we go to a very probably large drop-off here. Honestly, I looked at this roster, and I haven't paid attention to baseball quite as much as I used to, but I still know a whole lot of players, and I even know a whole lot of prospects. And I looked at the projected lineup in rotation, and I literally knew no one other than the guys they overpaid from 6 years ago that were on the roster.
Piece of tumbleweed.
So what do you make of this Baltimore Orioles team and their 64.5 win total? Maybe, but they're in such a tough division too. I think last year the Yankees literally beat them every game they played. So
I know the Orioles are going to try, but I don't see this at all. This is pretty much a minor league team at this point. I'm going to have to say. I'm going to have to say
it's a minor league team, but I don't even think it's a good minor league team. I think these are a lot of career minor leaguers. It's not like, all the prospects they have, they're, keeping down in the minors. And all I know is I saw Matt Harvey and Felix Hernandez possibly penciled into this rotation. And the last time I saw Matt Harvey pitch, I believe he had a 20 ERA and was throwing 80 miles an hour.
Yeah, I saw where they had Harvey Inc. the other day, and you have to laugh. But this team's a ways off. I don't even know what direction it's going in, so I'm gonna have to say under on the O's.
Well, I'll tell you what, in 2030, we'll bring you back here, and maybe the O's will have 500 prospects littered their roster for tanking for the last 7 years. Okay, we'll move from the AL East to the AL Central. Interesting division here. Two really solid teams, and no telling what you're getting from the Indians, Royals, and Tigers. They are in their proverbial MLB new strategy tank mode, but White Sox favored here at minus 125. Little dicey. Eloy Jimenez got tore his pec the other day. So that's a little bit of a blow, but I still think they'd probably be the favorite team. Though I do think the Twins at plus 140 getting a little undervalued here. And the Indians at plus 750. I just don't know what to make of them. They're sort of rebuilding, but they still seem to have a little bit of enough to, I don't know if I'd say contend with the Twins or White Sox, but they could be a little spunky. There might be a run there in July where you're like, oh, the Indians are still sort of hanging around at 750, Royals 4,000, Tigers plus 5,500. Where are you going here in the AL Central? Are you a White Sox believer?
The White Sox were a tough team. Another one that's great on paper.
Yeah, I was going to say this is a lot like the Blue Jays here. They might have a little bit better pitching that I trust a little more, but it's very similar. Whole lot of hype coming off a whole lot of these guys, but not a lot of wins the last handful of years to be like, yeah, I trust that's going to win.
I do like the three top starter, the first three positions in the rotation. Looked pretty solid. You've got Lance Lynn. He's always solid. You've got Dallas Keuchel. That's a pretty surefire bet to at least get you your innings. And Giolito is going to have a pretty good year. I think this could be a year that he'll finally come into his own and be the guy that they've expected him to be. As far as the White Sox, I still think the White Sox are a couple years off that big year that the White Sox think it is, but I still have the White Sox for the division. Yeah, I could see the White Sox having the best team. They're probably going to win the division. Yeah.
I think I'd ride with the Twins here. I'm not like bullish on it. Okay. I just like this Twins team. It's a very weird team. The pitching is I don't even know if I call it solid. It's a whole lot of guys who eat a whole lot of innings and, give up 3-4 runs. And this team just mashes the ball out of the stadium. They don't hit for a ton of average, but literally like any one of the 8-9 guys on here can hit 30 homers and you wouldn't be like, oh, that's out of the norm. So now I know sabermetrics people hate this team because they think everybody's due for a regression every year. But I thought last year they proved that they, that's what these guys are. They're mashers who don't hit for a ton of average, get on base decent amount, and the pitchers are the pitchers. They're innings eaters. I just think they're good enough to maybe win this division. I'd be very interested. I'm going to be interested to see how this plays out. So I'd ride with the Twins here a little bit. We'll get to the win total so we can break down the Cleveland Indians because I'm very curious on your take on the Cleveland Indians as well. We'll start out with the Chicago White Sox at 91.5. 91.5. Big win total. What are you seeing here? Even with the Eloy injury, do they hit that 90 win mark?
I'm not so sure. Wow, that's tough. This is going to be a really close division, and I could see 90 wins being almost the total for the division. I think 3 of these teams are going to compete. 2 of them aren't. Let's see. I'm going to go under on the Sox, actually. I just don't see them hitting over 91 wins this year. I don't. Yeah.
See, I'm with you. I think maybe 89 wins this division. Now, I will say this. It probably depends how you feel about the Indians. If you don't think the Indians are going to be good, then that's another team these Twins and White Sox can beat up. But if you think the Indians will be a solid enough team that could steal some wins from them, and that gives 3 teams in that division that are solid enough. So I'm probably going to go under the White Sox 92.5 wins. We'll talk about that. We'll move to the Twins. They're at 88.5. They're probably sitting right on the mark that I think the White Sox should be at, and probably the Twins at. So 88.5. I'm guessing you're probably hovering right around that win total as well. So what are you thinking on the Twins at 88.5?
I think that I have the Twins in an up position.
Oh, do you?
I think this division is going to be really close. I think these top two teams are going to be right on each other's heels. I could see the Twins going over 88 wins, especially if the Sox are running. So,
Yeah. All right. We've hovered around it. The Cleveland Indians. Their win total is at 81.5 wins. It's a very interesting roster and team. What do you think of the Cleveland Indians? Are you thinking they might still be hovering around the chance to win this division, or do you think they're going to drop off after trading a handful of their guys?
I think that Cleveland's in one of those interesting positions where they are just right in the middle. I mean, the team still has its solid pieces. And like you said, they've lost some too, subtracted some of those pieces. You've got Francona still leading this entire club. Salty veteran, knows how to pull it out. He's been there before. I think that you might be able to get more than 81 wins out of this team, especially if we're right on the heels of the Sox and the Twins. I mean, if it gets to be that dead heat like that, I think that these central divisions might get into, because a couple of these teams at the top of both of these central divisions are really evenly matched. I mean, they play each other all the time. They know each other. I could see the top three teams in this division being pretty close, and I could see that one. Man, 80 wins sounds about right, but I could see this team pulling out a few more if they had to. It's interesting. I don't know,
Yeah. I'm going to lean over.
Over.
They still have Shane Bieber, who was a great pitcher for them. Plesac, I think, is solid. He might be by July allowed to go out and party and not piss everybody off and try to get everybody sick. So maybe that relaxes him a little bit. And I think a couple of their young pitchers might step up. I like Jack Bowers at first base. He's a solid prospect. Their infield's still really good, even without Lindor. Now, you take away Lindor, who's one of the best players in the league. Yeah. They're going to lose something, but they still, I like Cesar Hernandez. Jose Ramirez is a solid third baseman. Gimenez is going to fill in for Lindor, but he's not going to be as good. Both Rosario's out in left field and center, I think, are solid enough. So I think there's enough here to be in the mix. I don't know if they'll take that bottom wild card spot, but I don't think they'll be too far out of it. So I think they'll also be fighting all season long. I don't think it's like a Cubs, or situation where they're going to just totally abandon ship, because a lot of these guys are also on good contracts. The problem with like Lindor and Bauer the year before, and all these guys that left, their contracts were coming up and they were going to have to pay them a whole lot of money. And this Indians team doesn't always totally like to do that. So I think the Indians will at least be in the mix. I don't know if they'll be able to contend, but I'll lean a little over on this in this division. Okay, we're going to try to break down these next two teams. Their win totals are at least a little higher than the really, really bad teams. They at least have some of those prospects filtering in through their roster, so they might not be the total dregs, but I'm not sure they're too far off. But anyway, the Royals had a 72.5 win total. I was pretty shocked it was that high. But maybe you like a handful more of their prospects than I do. But other than Mondesi, I don't see a lot of life on this Royals team. So what are you thinking on the Royals at 72.5?
With their big trade being Benintini and you lost for years. I sat and listened to the hype around Franchi Cordero. Now he's starting for the Boston this year. I think that the Royals are I say that the Royals are going to go under that 72. I just don't see it. I don't think the Royals have the gas to do this year.
Yeah. The only thing I can say is maybe their pitching is okay. They brought in Minor, who's hot and cold, really. COVID year, he was awful. The year before, they were trying to hand him a Cy Young. So I think probably, more normal year, Minor's probably solid. I do like Brad Keller and Singer. They're solid young pitchers.
Right.
The back end of their rotation, we won't get into how Danny Duffy is still pitching in this league. I don't know. I get a little more nervous on their hitting side of things. Like I said, Mondesi's the only one I totally trust to be a hitter. I like Salvador Perez, but I think we're getting into a little of the Yadier Molina category where, yes, we all like him, but he's a little old, and it probably was time to move on 3 years ago. But hey, whatever. It's the catcher position. We can fill a hole. Carlos Santana, I guess, can still sort of hit a little bit. But speaking of old and washed hitters, and, Benintendi, Taylor, Whit Midfield, they're all sort of low-level, sort of replacement-level players that are good enough to maybe be on a major league roster, but they probably shouldn't be penciled into your lineup every day as a starter.
No.
So maybe this pitching staff is what they're looking at and thinking maybe they can get them some wins. But I just think overall hitting wise, pitchers are going to have a field day on these guys and look ahead to it. So I'm going way under on the Kansas City Royals. I just think they'll be a little light. Now, this one might surprise you a little bit on my take on the Detroit Tigers. I'm not going to say they're going to be contenders, but I do think they might be a little bit spunkier than people let on. They are going to bring they are going to bring all these prospects up, maybe not right away because the MLB pay structure, but by May and June, all these guys will be in there. Miggy's still there. Now Miggy is no longer Miggy, but he can still make contact with the ball. It doesn't always go over the fence like it used to, but it gaps for a single as he walks down to first base. Anyway, 68.5 I thought was a little low. And really, I think I probably have reversed these two win totals for the Royals and Tigers. I think the Tigers could get to a 70 win mark here. What's your feeling on the Detroit Tigers?
I could see the Tigers eking out 70 wins, even though I don't want to say it's going to be much over 68. So that would be a gamble. But like you said, if they're going to play the kids, if new look, a lot of inexperience, you could eke out 70 wins. I'll give it over for the Tigers. I don't think they'll be as bad as the O's. So
yes, I don't think they're hitting Rockies, O's, Pittsburgh level. Now, I mean, they're still in their little tank mode, but I think they've tanked enough now that they have enough where the farm system is here and they need to bring these kids up. And if they're as quote unquote as good as, they're hyped up to be, I think they can win 70 games and they have enough veterans in here to where they can do something. And, manager wise, I think we were all in love with the Houston Astros manager up until a year ago when I guess cheating was their thing. Though I'd really like to see a book where every team was not using cameras and stealing signs. So we just all hate the Astros. So I think manager wise, they probably got a steal here and they might be a decent enough team to win 70 games here.
I'll give you that.
Yeah. All right. We'll move to our last division. We'll go out to the AL West. I think this is a pretty interesting division here. I don't totally know who's coming out of it. We'll look at the Astros, A's, and the I want to put my Angels in here just because I love Shohei Ohtani.
Hey,
but
they were tough to judge.
I've also learned every time I look at that Angels pitching staff, which really has not been good since they won the World Series in the very early 2000s.
That's the question mark.
But Astros at plus 130, A's at plus 155, Angels at plus 300, and then the Mariners are plus 3,000. And we'll get into the Rangers roster of teams tanking and very, very bad rosters and possibly the worst pitching staff, which is staying and stuff since we've hammered a couple of these pitching staffs in baseball at 7,500. So I'm curious of your thoughts on this AL West division. Are you riding Astros? I think people started to not believe, but they lost a handful of guys here. But you got the A's hat on. Are you sticking with your A's here? Do you think there's going to be a little bit of a drop-off on the A's, or the A's are just the A's, and they'll win their 89, 90 games and be in the playoffs?
I love the A's. The A's are magic. Absolute magic every year. They can do it with nothing. So I'm going to stick with my A's, even though the Astros are probably a better bet. I love the Oakland A's in this division. So
yeah, I think I'm
big
going to
Matt Chapman fan. So
yeah. I think I just got to ride with the Astros. I think they get a little undervalued because everybody hates them now, you know.
I'll give you that.
Now, I do think the Springer leaving will hurt them a little bit. More than anything, I'd probably like to know what Justin Verlander's status is. If he comes back by July, and is, you know, we're asking Justin Verlander, who's almost 40 now, to come back and be firing fastballs after his second Tommy John surgery. But if you could plug him into this rotation with Greinke and McCullers, and he's, you know, solid enough, I think the Astros are probably still there in this division. You still have Correa, you still have Bergman, you still have Brantley, you still have Altuve. You know, Springer's a loss, but they have hitters is still on this team loaded up, and they have enough pitching, and they might be one of these teams that's also in the mix for, you know, these handful of veteran teams that are going to unload a handful of their guys. So it'll be really, really interesting to see how this division breaks out. Before we get to the win totals, any faith in the Angels here, or you look at that pitching staff and you know they're going to die?
I really like the Angels till you look at the pitching staff. And then Ohtani,
well, that's what I was going to ask. If you could tell me Ohtani was going to pitch 25 starts and was going to pitch 25 starts and throwing, you know, 98 to 100 like he was before, I could buy it. But I don't know if you can get that. I just don't know if you can get a guy to play two-way, like serious two-way, not, you know, he plays right field and then comes in and pitches a bullpen session every, you know, sixth game. To have essentially a full-time starter and a full-time DH, I just don't know if a body can hold up to that throughout a Major League Baseball season.
I have my doubts. The way that they have him slated, it does look like they're going to want him to hit this year. And I really don't know what that's going to look like on his arm over a year total. Like they're going to have to pull him. He'll only do the partial year. So they need him, and I don't think they're going to utilize him in the way I'd like to see. So. Yeah.
All right, we'll get to these AL West win totals. We'll start out with the Astros. I thought it was a little low. I really thought everyone was a little low in this division, especially considering these bottom two teams who, especially the Rangers, I wouldn't be stunned if they were the one who were in the 50-win mark here. But Astros at 86.5. Did you think that was low, or you think the over's coming here and you're going to,
have them up?
Yeah, we already touched on the Astros enough. We'll go to the A's. We did not touch on them a ton here. Still a solid bunch. Their win total is at 87.5. I think that one's a little low too. So I think they can go over. Do you think the A's over?
I'm going to go over. Yeah, I think the A's can do it. They're still looking really solid. It'll just depend on it'll depend on how the team actually looks when they take the field, because they look good on paper.
Yeah, I think the lineup really, really solid, as it usually is. The question here, as we've had for a handful of these teams that sort of, don't sit at the top, but sit, that middle tier that will probably be in the playoffs is once again pitching. The rotation is solid. It's a lot of, A's type guys. I don't know if they have the front line guy
Right.
that would make me think, oh, this is going to be a 90-win team. So I probably would lean on the over here, but it would make me a little nervous. Also, I just don't think they had the depth. So, Chapman, Olsen, those guys get hurt. Then that hitting starts to drop, and
Right.
it's just sort of like a stack of dominoes.
Next man up. Yes.
As long as this A's team is healthy, they're probably an 88, 90 win team. But once if guys start to get hurt and you're just in that year from hell where no one can get healthy, then the team might drop really quick. I don't know if it drops to the bottom where the Rangers and Mariners sit, but with the Angels and Astros lurking there. But I'd lean over here. All right, we'll go to the Angels. This is the one I think we're both curious about. 83.5. The lineup looks very, very good. Can this pitching staff cobble together to go over 84.5 wins, or are you sitting right on an under here?
I hate to tell you, I'm sitting on an under, and I thought about it because we're on a team with Anthony Rendon, and I hate to think that these guys aren't going to win 83 games, but I don't know, the pitching. I just don't. I talk about a lack of depth. I just don't see the pitching holding up at all this year for the A's.
I want to believe in this team because theoretically. Rendon, Upton, Trout, Fowler, Ohtani, Pujols might DH in and out of there. He could still pop a home run. I don't know if he can run down to first base anymore. Honestly, I don't know if he can walk down to first base anymore like Miguel Cabrera does. But the hitting is there. It really hinges, I think, on Ohtani, how much. Maybe it's one of those miracle, you get that one like Brett Saberhagen in the 80s miracle year where he's healthy and we get the, 98 mile an hour fastball flying and then the next year his arm is never the same. But you get that 1 year out of it. Maybe the Angels can make a push here. I've never been in love with Dylan Bundy. Heaney, they tried to hype him up, but I think we all know he's a 3-4, probably actually a 5th starter. But, occasionally once every 10 starts, we see a glimpse of niceness. I think I just got to go under here until I see something other. I just don't think you could be like Shohei Ohtani's our ace when you're like, he's also our full-time DH. And,
there you go.
he has not been able to pitch a, full season. Yeah,
right.
The first season was great for that first half, and then his arm fell off. And then the last 2 years, his arm hasn't been right. Now they're saying his arm is right this year, but how long is that going to last with him also playing DH? So just interesting, but I think I have to lean under on the Angels here. We'll go to the Mariners next, 72.5. The prospects are starting to come up a little bit in this Mariners staff. The only thing is I don't know how much I trust these prospects.
Right.
What do you think of this Mariners team? Any life to it? Do you think maybe a win bump here, or do you think it's just the way it's going to be?
Potential. I think that there is a small amount of a potential there. 72. It seems a little low, but I don't see him winning. I don't see him winning 75 plus. 75 seems pretty. I like Marco Gonzalez as their top of the rotation. They're scrappy, but I don't see them doing too much. To tell you, the Stros and the A's will be that much stronger in this division, I think.
Well,
So
I really like Marco. I think he could be a 1-2 starter.
Right.
They brought Paxton back.
could be.
Yeah, there are times when you actually believe,
Right.
and then he's out for 2 months because his arm
That's it.
hurts.
There you go.
I think a couple of their other pitching prospects are pretty solid. The hitting, it's hard to say. It's very hard for me to go over on this team, but maybe it has enough. So I'll lean over, but it's very tough for me to believe that they are going to win almost 75 games with the Astros and the A's in there and maybe a good Angels season. So, really the only team to pick on is the Rangers, and we'll get to them. Rangers, 66.5. I thought this was very, very high, especially how we just talked about the rest of this division. A's, Astros, Angels, I think we all think will be in and around the 80 win mark to 90 win mark. We said the Mariners might be a little improved here. So that leaves one whipping boy here, and that's the Rangers. Do you think they'll get over 66.5 wins? I'm way down on the Rangers.
Yeah, I don't see the Rangers at all. Coming in with Odor and then Gibson leading the pitching staff, I think you've got a big goose egg. I think you've got possibly one of the worst teams we're reviewing this year. So I see this team completely tanking out and going way under, actually.
Yeah, so. I'm way under on this. And we talked about teams selling off guys. I think Odor, I'm assuming there's still a little bit of a market for Joey Gallo. You know what he is, yes. But I don't think they'd probably get rid of Dahl, but, maybe they would. So it just doesn't look like much in this pitching staff.
Yeah.
When your ace is Kyle Gibson and you're paying him a solid amount of money, I won't understand that one totally. But anyway, I just have to go way, way under on this. I just can't think this Rangers team is going to be anywhere near as good. And I think they'll be a way seller also in this market. So we went through all the divisions. We'll go to the two AL, NL. Let's start with the NL. You have a couple NL winners you think could come out of these NL. I know the Dodgers probably easily at top of your list. But let's throw Padres, Braves, Mets, Cardinals. I guess theoretically you could talk yourself into miracle love of Reds, Phillies, Nationals. That's probably the cutoff right there. You think any of those teams might contend against the Dodgers? You have any love for any of them coming out?
Oh, you know who I have love for.
Yes, but do you have
We're Dodger Slayers. One team that has Clayton Kershaw's number, but
the problem is he's now like their fifth starter. So
his name's not Walker. I'm gonna have to go. Of course, go with the Dodgers as the heavy favorites. But the team that I just have this gut feeling that this is going to be a really good year. They've been well constructed for a couple years. And I know when you read about the National League, they want to talk about them, but baseball as a whole, they've kind of left it out. I think Atlanta's looking really good. This just seems like a year that Atlanta really could do some damage. I mean, really show off their team. And then after that, gravity pulls you towards the Padres, but it's the Padres. Yeah. So I would take my third slot, the good old St. Louis Cardinals. Don't sleep on the St. Louis Cardinals and Nolan Arenado added. That's. Well,
I was going to say we're on the same wavelength here. I think the Dodgers come out. I can't totally buy the Padres just because, we haven't seen them do it. Now, granted, that pitching staff is fearsome, and when we've been over it, how many teams don't have great pitching staff. So you're a step above when you have that great pitching staff. So, but I don't see a lot of value in the Padres. I agree with you. The Braves at 550, really decent value. And I'm with you. That Cardinals at plus 1,000. Now, trades would have to be made for me to really, really believe that they're coming out of here. But they're sitting in a pretty easy division. So I think they'll, be head and tails above everybody in that division. And if they can make a move sometime to get, I don't even think an ace, but a number 2 level style starter, then you can start convincing me that there's enough hitting on that team that they can at least put some pressure. It's going to be very, very difficult to beat this Dodgers roster. And if the Padres get into the playoffs, they can throw 1, 2, 3 pitchers at you that will be very, very difficult to beat. And really, that's where I'd see the Braves' problem too. Against the Padres and Dodgers, their 1, 2, 3 pitchers just are not on the same level as those two. But I do think the Cardinals good value at plus 1,000, and I do think the Braves at 550 really good value. I'm not buying into the Mets and. No. Reds and Phillies, I'm not totally buying into. Nationals, if you could show me what Scherzer and Strasburg's lines and games pitched are at the end of the year,
there you go. Okay,
I can give you a better thought on what the Nationals are going to be. But I saw a little too much drop-off in Scherzer last year. Now, you don't know how much of that to take because the season was so random and weird. And, Scherzer's such a weirdo as it is. It just might have been a total lost year for both of them, really. So maybe long shot Nationals if their pitching is right. Because we talked about Dodgers and Padres having frontline pitchers. If the Nationals pitchers are right, they have frontline pitchers. Now the hitting is a talk about, but in the playoffs, if you have that frontline pitching staff, the hitting will find its way. We'll move to the AL. Yankees are the favorite here, but they wouldn't be my first choice to come out. But I don't know. You could convince me that the White Sox Twins would be my second, third choice to come out of here.
It's a tough one.
Blue Jays are up there. I can't help but stare at Astros and Rays at 950. We talked about the Athletics. Their playoff woes are what they are, but they're always there. So I have to at least think at some time, eventually it will pop where the Athletics maybe get a run in them. So what are your feelings on the MLB AL winner here?
Of course, I had the Yankees. They were the heavy favorite with everybody. I also, right under the Yankees, I had the Astros. I think the Astros have the experience. I think the Astros have the chip to something to prove this year. They really want to get out from under all the bad mouthing that they took and the fact that they didn't legitimately win their World Series. Let's see, but my heavy third, I had Tampa Bay and and then I like the A's. I like Oakland. That's just a little bit of bias, though. I don't actually see them doing it, but it's possible. So
well, I was going to say, you look at the Astros, Rays, A's, 950, and 1,000 as 6, 7, 8 favorites in here. And you just have these 3 teams above them. Yankees aside, they're in the playoffs all the time. But White Sox, Twins, Blue Jays really haven't proven anything. So I don't know how you make them second, third, and fourth favorites when really we haven't seen any of those teams win at a high level. I guess the Twins probably have been solid for a couple of years now, but their playoff success is somehow worse than Oakland. So unless Kirby Puckett is coming up from the grave and Ken Herbeck doesn't weigh 500 pounds, I don't know how much you trust the Twins here. I'm just shocked that they put the White Sox, Twins, and Blue Jays ahead of proven teams in the Astros, Rays, and A's, who we know will be hovering around. So if I wasn't leaning Yankees, I'd definitely stare at that Astros, Rays, Athletics. we pushed on the Indians and Angels. I don't think there's really any chance they can make a run in the playoffs. You could maybe convince me that they could get to the playoffs. I don't think you could see them making a run. All right, we'll move on to the World Series here. Dodgers are the favorite at 350, Yankees at 550. Then it goes into a mix here between Padres, White Sox, Braves, Mets. Any feel here on any team other than really the Dodgers, but any other team you think would be a good bet to put some money on here, long shot wise, or just maybe get a player and can push the Dodgers in a World Series fight here?
Really, in my heart, I feel that it in all accounts, quite possibly is going to be an LA New York World Series, but that's no fun. So, I want to go. My ultimate World Series winner that I have it's in my gut. Okay, it's in my gut, and I'm gonna have to say Atlanta. If you want a sleeper team, I really think Atlanta got overlooked. I think Atlanta is the real deal, solid this year. I know Atlanta's had their troubles in the past, but then they've overcome that in the past also. So. I like Atlanta, but before I can say Atlanta.
Yeah.
Atlanta usually has to play the cards to get anywhere, and that's in their veins. So, can you throw in the St. Louis Cardinals? I know people are going to look at me like I'm crazy, but it's 2021. It was 2011 at one point. It's an odd year. Yeah. This is a weird year. Maybe. I don't know. So those would be my two that aren't LA or New York for the World Series.
Well, I think if you aren't going to take the Dodgers, which at 350, honestly, I think that would be a pretty solid bet. But I would definitely skip Yankees, Padres, White Sox. I don't think there's much value there. Braves at plus 1,000, really think there's solid value there. And then I dropped down. I'd start at your Cardinals at 22. Blue Jays, I know we've hammered them, but at 22-1, that becomes a long shot where I'm like, if everything goes right, they at least have players who I think could be in there. And then I really stared at the Astros at 25-1. I think we all forget they were the team that made the World Series last year. So, really, if you're looking at the AL's most dominant team the last, 5 to 6 years, it's been the Astros, not the Yankees. So there's that. And then, A's and Rays at 25-1 also I looked at. I can see any of those. And I really like the Astros and Rays at 25-1. I don't know if they could actually win the World Series, but I think there's good enough value there that those have been the teams that have been in and around the World Series there. So, decent value there, but I really, really stare hard at the Dodgers. All right, that's our MLB preview. We want to thank Redbird Williams for joining us. We might have him back throughout the baseball season to give us some highlights. We're also going to have him in to break down the Zack Snyder Justice League cut. Rita Cinema was not up for the 4-hour watch. But
I'm stoked about it. So.
Yeah, I know. Our man Redbird Williams was definitely up for the 4-hour watch. So we're going to have him in next week to break down the Zack Snyder Justice League cut. And we're out.